It was March 13, 1954. Soviet Russia was in the middle of the fight for its life. On every side, people wanted to see it fall. At the time, the Soviet Union had over 6 different intelligence agencies, and it was a constant headache. No one shared information, no one told anyone else what they were doing, and things just couldn't go on like this. So, the KGB was born, a combination of all these agencies under one man, Ivan the Bonebreaker. Ivan Serov, an ex-intelligence officer, was known as the guy who could, quote, break every bone in a man's body without killing him, end quotes. He passed on all of this on to his new baby, the KGB. Under Serov, the KGB became one of the most feared intelligence agencies in the world, the sword and shield of the Communist Party. Whatever the rulers of Soviet Russia wanted, the KGB would get it done. At its peak, it had more than 480,000 active members. Born from some of the darkest, most bloodthirsty agencies in the world, the KGB was here to make its mark, and it wasted no time doing that. Juan Lazaro had a very fulfilling life. Born in Peru, he was a karate black belt, news photographer, and the husband of a popular TV reporter, Vicky Palaz. In 1985, the young couple decided to try their luck in America, so they moved to New York. There he got a PhD and started teaching political science. He seemed like a typical immigrant who got lucky. He was living the American dream. The only problem was, the real Juan Lazaro died back in 1947, when he was just 3 years old. So where did this new successful Juan come from? He arrived in Peru in 1973. According to records, he had a passport from Uruguay. Once he moved to America, he wasted no time publishing reports and articles at his new role as a professor. He called America's wars in Iraq and Afghanistan money-making ploys. He criticized every part of American foreign policy. This guy did not hold back, and his students loved him for it. He was as controversial as they came. No one suspected him to be anything else other than what he was. But you guessed it, Juan was actually a KGB spy named Mikhail Anatolyevich, the perfect example of a deep-cover sleeper agent. And the man responsible for creating these deep-cover agents was Yuri Drazdov. Under Yuri's watch, KGB spies underwent years of training to transform them into flawless Americans, Europeans, and Latinos. KGB agents would browse through cemeteries, looking for names of babies or children who passed away, and new identities would be created from the dead for the would-be sleeper agents. This was before the internet made their job so much easier. Under these new identities, detailed stories would be created for each agent. A birth certificate would be printed, the church near the cemetery would be paid off to erase the death record, and suddenly these identities would come back to life 30 years later. These illegals would be grilled to the bone. If they even just spoke Russian in their sleep, they would be immediately disqualified. But unlike Hollywood wants us to believe, these spies had pretty boring lives. In every sense, they lived the regular Joe's life. They worked, got fired, had kids, divorced, went to PTA meetings and playdates. They never did any killing or kidnapping. That just wasn't their mission. Instead, they forgot everything about their Soviet heritage, and they just played the waiting game. If they had interesting information to share, they would pass it on to Moscow, but they never went out looking for trouble. But if Russia ever needed someone in America to sacrifice themselves in the name of the Soviet Union, they would be the ones to do it. They were sleeper agents just waiting to be woken up. Closer to Soviet Europe, the sleeper agents there had more action. They would infiltrate anti-Soviet groups, they would stir up conflict behind enemy lines, and no one did sleeper agents better than the KGB. And even today, there are probably still sleeper agents waiting to be activated in the US. In fact, there are more Russian spies in America than ever before. Even if the illegals program wasn't as useful as planned, it's still one of the KGB's greatest and longest lasting successes. 1994. The year one of the most famous double agents in history was finally caught. Aldrich Ames didn't start out his CIA career planning on selling secrets to the KGB. He was a pretty average CIA counterintelligence officer. He didn't make any shocking discoveries or save the world from nuclear war. For 31 years he went to work, logged in his hours, and left. More often than not, he would make stupid mistakes. His career wasn't going anywhere. He was stuck in an expensive divorce, and it felt like he would never make it out on top. The only thing he was good at was helping the CIA weed out Soviet embassy staff who could be working for the KGB. Sick of living an average life, sick of being a sucker, Aldrich desperately needed a win. He needed money. So he hatched a plan. He reached out to a contact in the Soviet embassy in 1985, and he said he would share important CIA secrets in exchange for $50,000. The information he planned to sell wasn't really that important, but it could be checked out and validated. The Soviets agreed, his debts were paid, his divorce finalized. Aldrich Ames could breathe a sign of relief. Except he had just given the KGB everything they wanted. They now had proof he was selling secrets to the enemy, and they could use that proof to blackmail him into giving much more. By late 1985, Ames was handing over the names of top American spies in the USSR, and they all started disappearing suspiciously quickly. Every time he handed over a name, the KGB handed him an envelope filled with cash. In the 9 years this went on, he took over 4.6 million from the KGB. He used it to buy a house, cars, go on vacations, all the things most people know you shouldn't buy with illegal money. And people started noticing. There was no way he could afford all of this with just his salary. When the CIA came knocking, he denied everything. He even passed 2 lie detector tests just because he had been friendly with the examiner. By 1994, Aldrich Ames had exposed over 100 American spies in the Soviet Union. After the fall of the Soviet Union, he handed over the name of every American agent in Russia. Overall, it took 9 years for Aldrich Ames to be exposed. It was one of the biggest embarrassments in CIA history, and the KGB's greatest success. Aldrich Ames was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without parole. He is still in prison to this day. But he wasn't the only American double agent. Near the peak of the Cold War, the KGB had an insane amount of these informants around the world.
Please subscribe to this channel, eh? Please subscribe.